Hello, this is IP Stories by 4IP Council, the podcast about innovation and intellectual property. Join us and you will hear about the journeys through invention, creation, and IP understanding of our guests.
I'm Magali.
And I'm Marta, and we have with us today Gustav Szabo, known as Szabotage, and Hannah Smith. They are the duo behind the contemporary street art brand Szabotage.
Hi, Gustav. Hi, Hannah. Thank you very much for joining us today on IP Stories, and congratulations on building such a distinctive brand.
Hi. Oh.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us and spending this time with us. So we have a lot to cover. So I would like to start with Gustav and with your journey. So you began, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you began in Brighton, right? And became active in Hong Kong's street art scene, sorry. And now you actually work globally. So I would like to know the evolution. How did it happen? And at what point did Sabotage become more than just a tag on a wall?
Yeah, you're going back quite a way now. That Brighton, I sort of was a bit more active in London. Brighton's where I'm originally from, but I lived in Shoreditch for over 25 years or so, where I was super passionate about street art. It was on my doorstep. You couldn't avoid it. It was in your face. But I loved that. Had two successful shows in London. And then I had an opportunity to go out to Hong Kong with my work. I worked as an interior designer at the time, and then asked if Hannah would come with me, who was obviously my girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
And she didn't take much convincing, to be honest. So, yeah, that's where the journey sort of started. But when we got to Hong Kong, I think we thrived. I definitely thrived. I felt like that fish, a small fish in a small pond, really, where I was so ecstatic to sort of share with everyone what I learned and lived in Shoreditch that, you know, we were just spotting blank walls everywhere that had so much potential. So that's where it really became well, I mean, that's where my focuses were, and they escalated very much so. And the tag, I guess, is sort of, yeah, it evolved. It's about wanting to get yourself out there as much as possible. It all seemed a lot of fun at the time, a new country as well. But then things, I think, became a lot more serious when we were looking into doing exhibitions, and that's what we practiced before in London. Like I said, it was quite successful in London, so we wanted to bring that to Hong Kong as well. And then I think with the actual gallery, with the exhibitions, things really sort of catapulted for me with confidence and just with my work in general and getting ourselves out there.
Hannah, you play a key role in bringing art to the streets and street art to galleries, brands, and collectors. So, how did you shape Sabotage into a professional creative business, um, rather than like just an artistic practice?
I guess I kind of became, I mean, I'm a creative at heart, is how I started, but then I've kind of always had a bit of a commercial business sense, I suppose, is what you could say. And in real terms, I guess I'm like a manager, an agent, a PA, also now his wife. And I kind of fill in all the gaps that I can see, and I know I even have, like, as a creative, with just giving it that extra explanation. Because I think, like, where Gus is, he's really strong visually, but then that communication that's needed with companies, brands, networking, and actually getting the art on a platform where people can see it, purchase it, is, you know, it's hard work and graft, but it's kind of the thing that, as the creative, I think is very hard to do yourself, because you're creating. So how do you take that step back? So I guess I'm that one step back from the actual creative source, and I'm more the person that presents it to everyone, I suppose.
We know that probably every single artist is thinking right now, I need a Hannah.
But
I
then
mean, at
it's like,
least all the artists that I know, they are all the time like, oh my God, like it's so difficult to, like cover all these different aspects that need to be covered if you want to make a business out of it, if you want to live from it. But yeah.
so true. Yeah, that is what you need. But I mean, and I think it's what, it's what every successful artist has, every successful fashion designer, every successful creative is, you really do need someone that can help you, and be that you get an agent or you get a good gallerist. Like, you know, there are people there, and there are people there, but yeah, you've got to let people help.
So, talking about success, um, when your work, when your art indeed lives in public space, of course, anyone can take a picture of it, can repost it, share it online, reinterpret it, even also for commercial purposes, so just not just um, uh, for other means, not commercially. So, what are your thoughts? What do you think about recognition and authorship? Once that okay, the work indeed it's already available, and then this act happens.
Well, I guess the main reason for painting where we paint is to obviously get that recognition. And we do look for locations which are prime locations that everyone can see, whether they're next to motorways or what have you. Um, that's in itself is going to get you hopefully notoriety. Hopefully people will talk about it on social media. So I'm absolutely grateful for people that can share and, most importantly, credit the artist. I think the downside of that is potentially your work is out there for maybe people to misuse in whatever way. Um, and that's where it becomes, you have to be on guard, I guess, for the possible outcomes. um, I mean, I'm fortunate enough that we haven't had bad experiences of people using our work in a bad way. We've had it where people haven't credited us for, maybe photographing. um, but there is some horror stories that I've seen on social media where it could go the other extreme. People or large companies making money, not crediting the artist and not crediting them where they're due for their creativity. That's kind of sickening. And I guess that's where your role might come into it a bit more, Hannah, wouldn't it?
I guess there's, I don't know, like two small examples maybe for us is like, we've had a rap artist recently who's gone round and actually used all our murals as backdrops for his rap videos. I mean, that's brilliant, because our art is enhancing his art. He's another creative. We love supporting that. But he's done a really great job at crediting us and then sharing the social media, which is, gives our work more recognition, gives it exposure. And that feels like a fair swap. But then we had another person recently who used our artwork for a car shoot. So it's a photographer. And then we saw the prints for sale in a shop. Now, of course, as a photographer, he can do that. And he's also is an artist. So he's doing something. But there is no credit to us. Like, even for us, if he'd just written on the back, um, artwork featured in this by Szabotage, that makes you feel some sort of worth from it. So then that's fair enough. And then the thing is, and also it's like, we don't expect someone at that level necessarily to pay us, but I think it all depends how much money it is probably involved and how much someone's commercializing it. If they use it, they take it and put it on a print, and then they start selling the prints of that exact artwork. I think that's where you would bring in that that's not cool. And then you would need to talk to a lawyer, or you would need to talk to them and say, you need to give some money back for this.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And actually, I totally agree that this is a very common scenario, and the recognition plays an important role besides also the money, which of course then when somebody is misusing it has to be taken at a different level. But talking then about protection, besides copyright or in general, how do you on which IP do you rely most when protecting your work?
I think also this comes down to like, yeah, so if you're talking about public space art, it's totally different, because it is in the public space so people can take it. And then you know, you need to sign that artwork really well, put your signature massive, that you are giving people the opportunity to credit you. Whilst that doesn't protect it, at least then if it's photographed, your name was always going to feature. So you kind of, there's something there. And then obviously when it comes to working more commercially, you know, usually you have a contract. So you've got to read that and make sure what it's saying in regards of, you know, and the way someone can use it. But I guess that's more, not so much for street art, for the public space.
Okay, and I guess this question is more for Hannah. But well, just in case, I'm directing it to both of you. So, in the early days, how did you attract attention to the work?
It was very like, we were just wild, weren't we? We lived in London. So I mean, Gus did his first exhibition in a sex shop in Soho. I mean, so it was just like, do something out of the ordinary. And it wasn't even an overthought idea. It was just, it
Well,
worked.
do something random, do something fun, do something completely unusual. Yeah, I think we ticked all those boxes.
I think it's that you've just got to do it. And that was our attitude. It's just JDI, just do it. Nike started it. We carried it on. But yeah, you've got to like, you can't wait for someone to find you. You've just got to start running and then see who catches up. But then when we went to Hong Kong, we did the same thing. I don't know how we hustled it, but we managed to hustle this amazing space on like the 22nd floor with awesome views. It was like just a concrete cube.
Prime sort of office space, the open plan, in the middle of the
middle of their Soho, so
Yeah.
kind of slap central. And then I basically, my vision was to make it the hottest ticket in town, and basically, I mean, it was probably 4 months of solid planning, and managed to hustle drink sponsors. And then I just collabed with any sort of contact I could. We bartered a lot, so we'd swap artwork for things, we'd offer to do things.
It was great because they had sort of several lifts going up to the space itself, and outside there was a huge queue because people couldn't get in fast enough, and that in itself just creates the desire to want to go in even more, because what's going on, what's all this noise up the 27th floor or whatever. So yeah, we sort of created a good vibe for her, I guess, didn't we?
And they let us have the space for like 5 days or something. So basically then I went round to people that I'd met that were also starting brands, and I was like, come and use the space, do an event there with us. So we then, whilst the artwork was decorating everything, we did like creative morning breakfasts, like, and we had talks. We had a fashion brand do a fashion launch. We did a fashion show in there, and then you painted the girls on the catwalk. We just kind of kept snowballing. But from that, we got a gallerist came down and he saw the work and he loved it and he took us on. And that was kind of probably one of the moments where it sort of shifted to like, oh,
it was great as well, because I remember walking past the gallery, the gallerist's gallery, and my work would really fit in there. I'd really like to have my work in there, and I resisted the temptation of knocking on, going, "Oh, I'm an artist. Can you show my work in your gallery?" That's not really the correct way of doing it. I think they've got to come to you. They've got to want you.
Yeah.
And that's what we managed to do there. And thankfully, he became my gallerist for full duration.
Well, he still is.
Yeah. In Hong Kong. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing, because it's true that you do need to have sort of like the right fit to make sure that it makes sense within that gallery. And I really like the fact that when someone is starting out, you do become like very creative in terms of like what things to do or where to show your art or what collaborations you can do. Like suddenly the fact that you have all this work to do and you don't really know what people do or don't do, like sometimes it's actually an advantage, because it sort of like makes you think more broadly and more crazy, and sometimes that works really well.
Yeah, I think that's where the energy is as well, isn't it? In the crazy.
And it's also about your audience as well, isn't it? Because like the events that we had were the sort of audience that we were looking for. So you're bringing them to your work. You know, when you have a gallerist or an exhibition in a gallery, normally it's the sort of the guest list of the gallerist that come to your work. But here we're seeking out similar professionals and in all fields. And
one major thing that you did do of like the where do you get started in that scenario was we would book an exhibition before you'd necessarily even made a collection, and then that would give you that time pressure to make the collection.
yeah, it
Yeah.
commits. You
Yeah.
commit to it.
We would pick a date. We're like, okay, we're going to do it
By
then.
hook, by
And
crook,
then,
you got to produce something, and you know it
Yeah.
works. Sometimes if you
yeah. Oh, we've definitely gone over 2 minutes now, haven't we?
So, so you have worked with major brands like Louis Vuitton, and like since these early days that we were talking about, things have changed a lot. I'm curious to know, like, when you enter a collaboration with a big brand, how important are the conversations around ownership and trademarks and the usage of rights? Like, like, do you need to have conversations beforehand, or as you were saying before, like perhaps have a very close look to the contracts? And do they change how you approach a project?
I think definitely in our case, every project is completely bespoke, because some might be live performances, some might be artwork, some might be digital artwork, some might be walls. Um, but you tend to find whenever you're working with a big brand, we would generally let them lead the conversation. And it always comes down to they will then talk about it. They'll bring it up usually, and they will give you a contract of what they're expecting. Just make sure that we weren't signing any rights away, really. But nowadays as well, we've got ChatGTP. I mean, it's like if I got a contract that like now, to be honest, I would still always ask people, because I think, it's only so much. But also, any terminology and things that you're not used to, you can put in and ask and find out for sure. And I think like when we were doing some of our big projects, we definitely had advisors or people I knew that I would ask. But yeah, I would say let them lead and let them provide a document, and then question it and make sure what, what's fair, isn't it? That's what you've got to think.
Meanwhile, in the background, I'm getting super excited myself, and just
Gus would sign. He would sign anything.
full of ideas and just want to crack on with it. But then, secretly squirreling away, Hannah's trying to plot her plan of how we approach this the correct way. So,
But also you've got to understand the value with different things. And I mean, because which is just something I guess I've learned from doing this, because you've got usage rights. If you're giving up usage rights, you then need to think about, well, what territories is that for? Because each time you add, if it's just for that country, it's less. If you add a wider world, it's more. And then you've got, well, how long are you going to give them a license for to print your artwork? Exactly. And then, and if they're going to want to do it for a second year, if they're a decent company, they might just come back and say, oh, can we use this again? We'll pay you something. Or if not, you've got to keep an eye out for it. Yeah, so it's things like that. And then, do you give them complete control where they can change something? Because it might be in your benefit, because you don't then have to make so many tweaks. And as long as they're keeping the kind of signature of the language of the art, you might be happy for them to do that. So I guess but then you can just charge a bit more for that.
Yes, definitely. No, and I think it's really good advice to like question everything, and what Gustav just said of like him getting excited in the background. I think that happens a lot. That artists often get very excited with the job, and they don't look so closely into the contract because they don't want to spoil things. But then it's the moment. It is the moment to question everything, and to go back and fight for whatever you think it's fair.
It's always that good cop, bad cop scenario as well. It's sort of like I become the good cop and she's the bad cop. She wants all the details of everything and make sure everything's right. And I'm like,
but I mean, the thing is you can't annoy a client either. And then that's understanding commercial. Like, you can ask a certain amount of questions, but you don't want to hold things up either too much. But you've got to question a bit, haven't you? So I guess it's just knowing what's fair. Yeah.
But it's also as well that the artwork has been in so many different circumstances. Each project has its own uniqueness. So, we could be painting on a piece of furniture for someone. We could be doing a live performance for someone. We could be doing a mural for their office, or we could even be doing like logos for the whole event. Whether it's a marathon we've done recently, a Hong Kong half marathon. So your work is being used in different ways, and that's where you've got to start thinking outside the box of how people might take advantage of that, and whether you cap it or whether you charge for it, or just make sure you understand the full extent of where it's likely to be used.
I want to move outside IP. I mean, earlier we talked, and now we were talking which were the ways in which we could rely on, or you could rely on IP to protect the creation, your work. But besides that, is there anything that you would use, let's say, to protect your creation? I don't know, in a way like, not to allow reverse engineering, let's say, your work, or copying your work, which is not IP related.
I do have various styles of how I paint. Spray paint is predominantly the main one that I use, but I also like to create artwork on the streets, painting canvases, and for that, I do have a formula, and it's quite a unique formula to Szabotage. To be able to copy that or copy an original be incredibly difficult, because I think just the sort of haphazard way that I create these pieces of layerings, you're not likely to be able to copy it like for like. It's not like an oil painting where that's straightforward. It's not just one type of media. It's like two or three layered upon each other. So there is a conscious effort or thinking behind it that it will take someone a hell of a lot of time to reproduce this.
Something that you guys mentioned last time that we had a chat, I remember that Gustav said that the best way to avoid being copied is to keep changing and to keep evolving. And
Yeah,
exactly.
there is that thinking as well, that I always like to try and stay one step ahead. And if you can create something out of a bad scenario, that's even better. If you get motivated by, let's say someone did try and copy or take some of your work and put it on a t-shirt, then you stay one step ahead. You create that same t-shirt but even better with the original artwork and
or
with
answer
certificates
them.
or whatever it is, that the quality's better, that you'd easily outsell them. It's I'm always up for looking at a problem and trying to find a better solution and being inspired to create even better.
Something that I really admire is the sort of like mindset that one needs to have in order to be in your sector, to be in arts. So we know that it's, it means like a lot of fluctuation, especially at the beginning when you are building your brand. You are not sure exactly what's going to happen. So I would like to know, for all those other artists and entrepreneurs in the world, um, what mindset do you think someone needs to have if they want to step into this world, in terms of their creativity and emotionally and financially? Like, what do you think it requires?
Um, well, I say you have to love it.
Mhm.
You're going to be doing this for the rest of your life, or you want to be doing it. Um, you it's the main thing is the passion, and it shouldn't be about the money whatsoever. It's more about, I want to do this, I want to produce it. And along with that comes lots of emotion. But I do feel that producing, help each other, helps the emotion as well. So if I am busy producing, it helps me control the emotion. I tend not to
Mhm.
think out, what someone says about that or whatever, because I'm just too busy in my zone. Then the financial side of things, maybe Hannah can probably elaborate on this one a bit more. The finances, I think, are always going to be a struggle, but it's more about trying to build your audience and making sure that you have audience all the time. So if you do produce, you can find ways of selling an original or whatever the offspins could be.
Yeah, I guess audience is kind of key, which I feel like is a word that's kind of more since we've had social media really build this audience. But I mean, back when we started, it was more your audience were just physical people that came to shows, and that's how you met them. So things have sort of changed. But I think you've got to be resilient, haven't you? You've got to be able to take criticism. You've got to be able to keep running forward, just despite anything, to keep being fresh. And I guess, where there's two of us, that has been slightly easier in the fact that I'm the one that worries a lot. He doesn't worry. Um, but yeah, like, one time we had a job for a great brand, and like as part of the deal, they gave us a stay in a five-star hotel. And we're in this five-star hotel. We've got the evening meal they've included, wonderful, with wine. But like, we're like, what are we doing for lunch or whatever? So we're, in a five-star hotel, and then we run down to 7-Eleven and get some sandwiches, because we're like, we can't afford. We're in a five-star hotel, but we don't know how we're going to pay next month's rent, and we're eating 7-Eleven sandwiches.
We're very good at pretending that the
Yeah.
lifestyle that we want, but
And I think we also, when it was famine or feast, even when we're in a feast, we do not spend. We still stayed like we didn't have much, and we just kept hold of it, because also we were always on a mission at the end of, like, not the end of this because we're still in it, but like our main mission was to build a house. And I think that was probably our shared goal, wasn't it? And I think maybe Gus's architecture background, and actually since coming back from Hong Kong, we've managed to achieve that this year, um, which is great. And now we've got to keep paying for it. But main rule is, when you started out, just have a part-time job, take the financial pressure off, or have a job, do it on the side, keep building, then swap.
Congratulations on the house. Sounds amazing to be building your own place.
it's very, very satisfying, actually. Because I studied architecture back in the early days, and I didn't pursue architecture just because I loved street art, and I think wanted more of the credit of producing my own work.
But it's something that you always liked, no? I guess that even.
Oh, absolutely. I bounced from one to the next. I love one thing one minute.
Nice.
So I moved back to audiences and markets. You were the first artist in Hong Kong to list NFTs in 2020. So what made you decide to step into the digital world and NFT at the time? And what do you see in that format that aligned with your street art work?
I think, well, that was back in Hong Kong. And one thing that we're always very fortunate about in Hong Kong was that we're surrounded by enthusiasts that like the work. So people that would buy the work may proposition and come up with another idea for what we could do with our art. And one of our collectors suggested, why don't we try NFTs? And I think really being an artist, we always were up for things. We were always up for new ideas. So
Art and
we
tech
wanted
mixes quite a lot, actually.
we
I
wanted
think,
to
like,
see
the
it through
innovation, isn't it?
really. And he had some great suggestions, and we just were up for it, I think, aren't we?
Yeah, and also it made sense because a big part of Gus's practice has always been digital. So most things he actually will pre-design digitally, so create them. So we always had this digital artwork that was never seen, it was always behind the scenes. And then everyone just saw the painted physical. So we wanted to create a collection that matched the physical and the digital. And actually NFT was just, the chain was just the perfect place to be able to sort of have that. So we did one collection, which was, you got a physical artwork, and then we had an animated digital that went with it and told a bit more of the story about the artwork. So it was just the actual artwork animated, but it would be doing something. So I mean, it was at the time when Bitcoin hit its highest, I think, and went absolutely boom. So we had some artworks that had these Bitcoins, and they were these women, and then they started dancing, and we had a jackpot machine painted with Bitcoins in it that went boom, and then it all lit up. So it was kind of, I don't know, it was a moment in time, and then we kind of went on to do other digitals, but it all just made sense of where we were, really.
Always moving about technology, I mean, and new technologies. You know that AI is increasingly present in creative work for a while now. Do you feel concerned about it, curious about it, or are you somewhere in between?
Well, I'd say I'm very much in between. I thrive on the idea of it, and then I become against the idea of it. I think it's an amazing tool, and I have used it. But also at the same time, I don't want to overuse it. I don't want to rely on it. I want the natural struggle, the natural way that I've became an artist. You have to pursue things, and I think sometimes it's a little bit too easy to go, ChatGTP, can you create me Santa Claus sat in, I don't know, a bunch of oranges going up a hill, whatever, and it will create something for you. Brilliant, but too much of a temptation to press those buttons, and that's where I tend to try and pull away from it. I do feel that it's an incredibly good tool that I should explore further for the behind the scenes.
I think it's useful. I think we don't really know the full ramifications of where it's going. And I think at the moment it's a useful tool. It's not one we 100% rely on, just because part of the creativity is the actual creating. I think the scary thing is more is if children don't learn creativity from their own mind before they start using that.
But I guess everyone is quite scared of all these controversy on how the AI is being fed. If you feed it with a lot of works from the same artist, then it can try to replicate and do something that looks like it has been done from the same artist. And I think that's where a lot of artists are a little bit scared. But again, I think at this point, in most cases, you can still tell.
Yeah, and also the thing is I guess it's like collectors that are willing to pay a lot of money for artwork. I mean, usually they want to know that it's hand signed. They want to know the certificate that came with it. And those things are kind of guarded in the artwork. Like the certificates that you get with a Banksy, unless you own a Banksy, you don't know what they are. And people that sell Banksies do know what they are. So therefore, they can retain the money. And I guess maybe that's what you're saying about other ways when you were saying, how can you protect your thing? It's that hand signature, and it's the documentation that goes with the artwork to prove that it's an original, to therefore that it holds that value of money.
But also it's about the sort of the artists and their story and how they've got about to being who they are, the lessons they've learned, and how you know, and I guess it's like what I mentioned earlier, that if you have make good out of a bad situation, I could almost feel that this could apply, that you try and combat the AI. You know, that could be an interesting process in itself, to try and better than what the AI can do, and try and make your work AI proof.
Oh, well, that could be a social media post that we put out. Gus and AI off.
So, Gustav, Hannah, we are almost reaching the end, and I have one final question for you. And this is, what final advice would you give to any other street artists or other artists in terms of how to navigate IP in this sector?
I think just as an artist, research it, find out what it is, isn't it? Yeah. And just make sure you check any contract people give you. And if they give you no contract and they want to use your work, give them one. The average artist isn't aware that people do how they actually license their work. And I guess that was something we found out on our journey, wasn't it? By speaking to agents. And, you know, this as an artist, like, that's how you can really earn money, is the things like the licensings and things like that's that next step to actually making it a career. Because, you know, you can only paint so many paintings a year. Like, and if you want this to be your income, like, I guess I just think of it from that, like, if you want this to be your income, you can only paint so many paintings a year. So you kind of need other revenue from that. Plus, it is your work. You created it. You've spent all this time training to be able to create that. So you should be compensated for producing it, just because it's almost like the digital file that's left over after you've done the hard work. So you can't then charge for your time necessarily, but actually it's everything that came before that is what you're charging them for. And that's what you've got to kind of remember.
Okay, that's a lot of great advice. Thank you so much to both of you for spending this time with us. And I wish you both the best. You will have to let us know whenever you do another exhibition. I live in Barcelona, just FYI.
Hey, we wondered where you were. If we come
I
to
was
Barcelona.
wondering too.
Yeah. If you come over to Barcelona, please let me know.
That's a great city to live in.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to IP Stories by 4IP Council. Visit our website on 4ipcouncil.eu to find out more, and check out the links mentioned during this episode. If you liked it, remember to share and subscribe.